Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining Anne and I in part two of Grounds for Divorce. And we are looking at exactly that. What are grounds for divorce? And my name is Soila, founder and editor of the divorcemagazine.co.uk. And Anne Corrigan, just tell us again where you're from in terms of work.
So I'm Anne Corrigan, and I'm from Clarity Family Law Solicitors. We're based in Buckinghamshire, but we look after people everywhere, and we're a specialist family law practice.
Okay, and it's good actually now when you say we look after people everywhere. I think that's the beauty of what the world has become so small. So you can work with anybody anywhere. Like you can work with them on Skype, on the phone. They don't have to come to your office anymore. No. Okay. And we were just looking, we've dealt with unreasonable behavior, some aspects of it, and we've looked at what to do next when this is the situation that you find yourself in. And again, one thing that I'd like to bring back again is the fact that, and it's something that we try and do a lot on the divorcemagazine.co.uk, and it's to put out that point that it doesn't have to be acrimonious, it doesn't have to be angry, and there are ways of going around it, without making everybody fight each other. It doesn't have to be that way. I think it depends very much on the support that you have as well, and who your solicitor is, and family mediation, and so forth. One thing that I wanted to ask you, I think, if we just look at the child custody part, because there are always questions around that, where even today I know some close friends or people who are going through divorce, and one thing they say is that I'm going to fight for full custody.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think there's some misunderstanding in that area.
I think there is. So the word custody disappeared from the law in 1991.
Thank goodness for that.
14th October 1991.
All right. To be precise.
Yeah, when the Children Act of 1989 came into force. So we got rid of the whole concept of custody. And because it used to be that one parent would get custody, or maybe joint custody, and then the other parent would get, and they'd have, used to be called care and control. And the word is even inflammatory. Why would one parent have control and the other parent would have what was called reasonable access? So that disappeared when the Children Act came in 91, and it was replaced with the concepts of residence and contact, on the basis that really the child or children could only really live with one parent. So a residence order said this is where the children are going to live, and a contact order said and the children will spend time with the other parent. And the court could make orders. But since 1991, there has been what's called a non-intervention principle. Okay. So the court will only get involved with children arrangements if it's a last resort, if the parents just can't agree. So that was until very recently. And then in April of this year, there's been two changes this year. In April, the government introduced what are now called child arrangements orders. Yeah. And the child arrangement orders very much put both parents in control of what happens, and we don't talk about. We used to have orders that said the resident parent would allow the children contact with the other parent. So it's a really wrong message. Yeah. Because they're both parents.
Yeah.
So child arrangements orders came in April, and they now say the child shall spend time with one parent and spend time with the other parent. And so it might be that the child spends time with the mother, let's say from Monday to Friday, and spends time with the father on alternate weekends.
Okay.
Wednesday night and so on. So it's much more about having both parents involved.
Yeah.
And that led to another change which only came into force on October the 22nd. And that's...
this year?
Yeah,
okay.
A few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and we now have Section 11, to be boring, of the Children and Families Act, now talks about parental involvement. Oh, right. And so there's now a focus, and a correct focus, that both parents should be involved with in the child's life, unless there's a risk of harm.
All right.
So it's really grown. It's come full circle. Both
Yeah.
parents should be involved.
What I like about what you're talking about is that it seems to be putting the child in the center of it all.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
it's not what mommy wants or what daddy wants. It's what is good for the child. And I think that's a
Yes,
huge step forward.
isn't it? And it's what mummy and daddy think is best for the child.
Yeah.
Not, mum says this, dad says that.
Yeah.
And I think it's a huge and fantastic provision that's now come into force, because everybody will now know, oh well, I can't stop her seeing the children, I can't stop him seeing the children. The law says that we've both got to be involved. And how could that be wrong, really?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other topic that I try and talk about in the Divorce Magazine. I hope with what you're talking about it's going to become more of a rarity, and that's parental alienation.
Yes.
Which is and also just when people pick up and leave. I've had emails from people who have picked up my the free ebook I have online, and they say, well, it's easy for you to say you're divorced, get over it and move on. The fact is I can't move on because I haven't seen my children for a year.
No.
So that is something that I hope the new October, what's it called, children?
So it's Section 11 of the Children and Families Act.
Yeah.
2014, and it talks about parental involvement unless there is evidence that a child would suffer harm if they had involvement from one or other of their parents, but that's so rarely the case.
Yeah. Okay.
And Soila, when people are hurt and they're angry by the breakdown of the marriage, it's very easy to let that hurt and that anger affect your judgment with the children.
Yeah.
And that's what the law is trying to get rid of. It's not about you, it's about the child.
Yeah. Like I always say, no parent becomes a bad parent overnight.
No, I say that too.
Yeah.
And when people say, and she did this and she did that, or he's done that, well, actually, you were married for 20 years and he was a perfect good father. So actually, let's not go down that road.
That's good. Okay, the other, thanks for that. Thank you. That's really important. I think I'd like to, talk about that a little bit more at some other point, the Section 11 and the whole children and divorce side of it.
Yes.
The other part I wanted to ask you about, which is something you mentioned right at the beginning in part 1 when you were talking about the 5 grounds. I guess I can call them grounds.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Was adultery. Now, what has been happening recently when I go into children's forums, when I go into parent forums or mums or dads and so forth, there's always this, even on telly when you can hear people talking about it, where they talk about the emotional affairs that people can have.
Yes.
So whether it's somebody, a husband picks up emails that a wife has been exchanging with her ex, and they can be quite intimate.
Yes.
Or text messages and so on and so forth. Now, where would that fall? Would it fall in adultery? Because you clearly said it's sexual adultery. So where would that emotional affair fall?
So that would come under the unreasonable behaviour heading. So because you might consider it's unreasonable that your wife is exchanging intimate text messages or emails with someone while she's married to you.
Yeah.
So that would be unreasonable behaviour as opposed to
adultery.
Adultery, Adultery is specifically sexual intercourse with someone that you are not married to whilst you're still married.
Okay, all right. Just one last comment before we finish. I have this thing about domestic violence needing to be completely separate because it's such a serious thing. It's such a big topic for both men and women, and I find it almost. This is me talking from a non-legal, it's just my own. I find it kind of trivializes it when it comes under unreasonable behavior because I see it even worse than adultery because you're physically or emotionally hurting somebody else on purpose.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely shocking, totally unacceptable, whether it's a man or a woman.
Yeah.
And you're right, it happens to both. And you can rely on it as a ground for divorce, obviously.
Yeah.
But there are also lots of remedies for domestic violence. You know, again, there's a whole huge Act of Parliament that gives you remedies.
Yes.
If you are the victim of domestic violence. And there are amazing organisations and charities and support networks for domestic violence. It is never acceptable, obviously, to put up with domestic violence.
Yeah.
And there are lots and lots of people out there to help.
Okay.
But in the legal process, you know, you can obtain orders to stop the person from coming near you. You can obtain orders so that you are allowed to occupy the house. You know, you should never suffer domestic violence. Get help immediately. There's lots of it out there.
Okay. And if anybody wanted to contact you, could you just tell us what your website is, but don't give phone numbers, just website and email if you want.
Yes, certainly. Well, our website, which contains a lot of information, Soila, and you know, it's about trying to help people. If I wanted to be a rich lawyer, I wouldn't be doing family law. I'd be doing corporate law.
True.
So I'm always happy for people to telephone. And some people say, oh, you know, it's far too trivial. Well, don't be afraid. There's lots of help out there. But our website is www.clarityfamilylaw.co.uk. And as I say, we're based in Buckinghamshire, but I've got clients in New Zealand, at the moment, Australia.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be near Buckinghamshire. And we're here to help, and there are always remedies available. So don't suffer in silence.
Okay.
Always take advice.
Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, Soila.
All right.
Lovely to talk to you this morning.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.